That's the one I won't say usually forget. That's the one that I usually behind.
Consenting.
Yeah, yeah. They always ask you to consent. And I get that. They should, Bruce, as they should. They should ask you to consent to being recorded and this and this. It's the young techies that teach me things that ordinarily I would never know. But fortunately, they help this old man out. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Louis B. Free Radio Show, Brain Food from the Heartland. I've got to say, the person that we're going to be speaking with, that I'm going to be speaking with, as soon as I get it together, as soon as I finish introducing him, I could take forever introducing him. Dr. Bruce K. Alexander, website, drbrucekalexander.com. I'm going to have you tell a little bit about yourself, Doc, when I finish my lengthy piece here. I'm going to tell you I'm so honored to be connected with you, and so honored that you put up with my request to always come back. So a little bit, you tell us a little bit about yourself. Don't forget Rat Park, of course.
Okay. Yes, I'm happy to tell you about myself. I'm an old man.
You tell us.
I'm almost 83. And
look
you
fantastic again.
You need to interrupt me when I tell you too much about myself.
No, not at all.
So here it is. I used to be an American. And then in 1970, I thought, this country is insane, and I will be insane if I stay here. So I left, and I went to Canada, leaving behind an ex-wife and 2 children. And Canada has been very kind to me. Among other things, when I was in Canada, I discovered addiction as a question. I mean, it's a mystery, right? Addiction is a mystery. How the hell come people throw their lives away for a drug or something else? How come? And it's got to be a mystery. And so I've spent my entire working life since 1970 trying to answer that question. And I actually believe I do know the answer, but I also believe that we're not in a position now where we can ever achieve a consensus. We are forever divided on this question, and it's killing us. So that's my despair statement. I'm afraid that the division in the field of addiction is killing us, because there's so many things that people get addicted to which are terribly dangerous, and we can't even deal with them because we don't even recognize them as addictions sometimes. I say that partly because right now I'm a grandpa and I'm looking at the addiction of young children to these video games. Holy smoke. This is serious stuff. And but we're not dealing with it. We're not dealing with it. Okay. My career in the field of addiction started with rats.
And we will get back to that because there's so much I want to weigh in on that with.
Okay, we'll get back to the children.
Yeah.
Good.
And the phones and video games, etc.
But let me tell you about the rats to start.
Oh, please.
Okay, so here we are, 1970. And the metaphor that went with being a drug addict in 1970 was a rat in a Skinner box being a little isolated box with a lever in the corner. The rat is pressing the lever endlessly until he dies of thirst or hunger, because when he presses the lever, he gets a little jolt of heroin through a tube implanted into his brain, basically. Well, that was the model. The model was that we have these irresistible drugs, and that there's the proof. The rat is the proof. Well, I don't think anyone would take that argument seriously now, because it's so obviously flawed. I mean, you've got an isolated rat with nothing whatsoever to do except press that stupid little lever, And what's he do? Well, he presses the stupid little lever. Um, and he gets, each time he gets a little whoop,
Yeah.
little jolt in the brain. Well, he does. And some of them died. I mean, they don't all die, of course, but some of them do. Now, that's not addiction. That's the behavior of a rat in solitary confinement with nothing whatsoever to do. Um, that's not the behavior of your son or daughter or your grandson or your granddaughter or yourself when you're in a very, very complex social situation and you're trying to figure out a way to live and make sense out of the world. And sometimes we, people in that position wind up being severely addicted to this or that or the other. That's a whole different thing. So, but in those days, in 1970, people took this rat metaphor way, way, way too seriously. So we did Rat Park, and Rat Park means you just take a bunch of rats and you realize that rats are highly social creatures. They're every bit as social as human beings are. Rats never live alone. They always live in a colony. And so we make a rat colony, and then we test the rats to see if they will press the little lever until they die. And of course they won't. No, they're not. They're too busy. They got life to live, and some press it a little more than others, yes, and some press it a little too much, but nothing like this ridiculous behavior of the isolated
When they were in the
creature.
Skinner cage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
I've
that
got to ask you, and I always ask you this, because you looking at it, and these had been done multiple times for a while. You looked at this and you saw the flaw in the test and the
plot,
experiment.
yeah,
And I'm always blown away by that, Dr. Bruce Alexander, because something in your brain looked at it that from a point of view that others, professionals, had not.
yeah, and I think it was just my good fortune because when I decided I was going to be a addiction psychologist, they sent me down to the methadone clinic, and my job was to talk to young methadone clients and and to explain to them that they could have their methadone, but they couldn't go out and buy heroin afterwards. So that was my job, to give them that little message and talk with them about it. And you know what they said back to me? They would just say, well, let me tell you about my life. And they would tell me about their lives, and they would tell me how excited they were about their lives. And their lives were basically avoiding the cops and buying dope and hanging out with girls who were buying dope. Most of the people that I talked to were men. So they're hanging around with these girls and they're buying dope and they're avoiding the cops and they're avoiding the guy they owe money to. And it's a big adventure story. And those of us who are in this position, those of us who are talking to these heroin addicts in 1970, we all had the same reaction. Why don't they shut up about their stupid life? We don't care about their stupid life. But of course, their stupid life is what's most important. They have an adventurous life. And then they would ask me, they'd say, well, look, if I give up that life, what am I going to do? Maybe I'll be a janitor, one guy said. What and the way he said it, nothing against being a janitor. I've
Of
been a
course.
janitor
Of course.
myself. Nothing against that. But he's saying, look, I don't want to live a life with no color in it, no meaning, no excitement. I'm living a life. And so I get my methadone, and of course I go out and buy heroin afterwards. I mean, I just want the heroin. I'd probably buy the heroin, even if I didn't need it, because it's the life. And that was an extraordinary experience. And I would go tell people that these young junkies were telling me that story, and people would say, no, man, just listen, those guys they got a monkey on their back, all they want is dope, they're just playing you. They don't. But no, they weren't. They were just telling me what was on their mind. I mean, they didn't care about me. They were just talking because they were forced to talk to me. And so they talk to me, they tell me about their life. And that experience, I wish everybody who is in the field of addiction could have that experience. Because once you have that experience, you can never think of these people are just like rats who can't get over a drug, just have to have more of that drug. Well, come on. They're human beings. And so once you know that they're human beings, then the world changes. And
Incredible.
lots of people know that now. I mean, there were a lot of people who didn't know that in 1970, but I think it's hard to not know it now.
So 52 years ago. Am I
Yeah,
doing the math accurately? Okay. I shouldn't
yeah.
try to do math in my head. That's a relatively simple one. I got to say,
You got it right, Louis.
your thank you. The globalization of addiction, your book, a study in the poverty of the spirit.
Yeah. Well, so poverty of the spirit. Why would anyone want to spend their life dodging the cops and dodging the dealer that you owe money to, and living in a rat-filled apartment or a tent, and trying to survive? Why would anyone want that life if they had a better life? And the answer is nobody would want that life if they had a better life, but there are a lot of people who can't get a better life. I mean, life has to have some excitement. It has to have some meaning. It has to have some purpose. If it doesn't have that, it's simply living death. And we all know that, right? You gotta be for something. And if you're not, you're suffering badly. And if you can get on a drug and all of a sudden you've got a life, I mean, all you got to pay is in those days, $10, get $10, go down and give somebody the $10, take the little white powder, stick it in your arm, and all of a sudden you're in the life. And how could we ever have ignored that?
Yeah, how could we? And again, I love the subtitle, A Study in the Poverty of the Spirit. It's brucekalexander.com. The website is brucekalexander.com. I've got all these studies that you were involved in and so much information in front of me. I want to talk with you, if you will, the brain disease model of addiction.
Yeah. Well, yes. I hate the brain disease model of addiction,
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know.
but
I'm aware of it.
I'm going to define it.
Yeah.
But I just want to say at the outset, I hate it. Um, the old idea before the brain disease model of addiction, there was the devil drug model of addiction. The devil drug was you take this drug a few times, you can't stop, man. You gotta keep taking it. It's because the drug is so good. It's so good. You just have to have it. Now, the devil drug theory is obviously wrong. All a person has to do is take a little bit of heroin and they know why the devil drug theory is wrong. But the brain disease model of addiction is a translation of the devil drug theory of addiction into the language of the brain. So now we don't say, oh, the drug is just so good that nobody can resist it without, we don't say that. We say, well, the drug affects the production of dopamine, and the drug affects the prefrontal cortices, which enable us to make informed decisions. In other words, we translate the old devil theory into the language of the brain. And now we say when people take the drug, well, they have to take it. It's not because the drug is like a devil. It's because the drug affects certain brain centers that nothing else affects. And therefore, they are hooked on the drug permanently. And therefore, they have to have the treatment from who? From people like me, psychologists and doctors, because these psychologists and doctors know how to unhook their brain. And again, we're being silly. We're just being silly. We're ignoring the fact that these are human beings who have real issues and are using the drug to cope with real issues. We're ignoring all that. And we're just saying, well, there's this automatic process. and we're ignoring it in the language of really high-tech neuroscience. I mean, the people who are doing this research are absolutely excellent neuroscientists. So why are these excellent neuroscientists proving this nonsensical kind of explanation for addiction? Why are they doing that? Well, I think what we have, I think we have to understand it in terms of really in terms of cultural denial. Like, let's step back and look at our culture for a minute and forget about these poor guys in the downtown who are taking too much drugs. Let's look at the whole culture. And what do we see? Well, I'm a grandpa. I see, for example, a lot of children, like young, beautiful children who are addicted to video games seriously. I mean, when I look at my 7-year-old grandson playing his video games, this guy's got normally what do you call it? A span of attention of about 2 seconds.
Yeah.
He's playing his video game. He's allowed to play for 90 minutes, right? He plays the whole 90 minutes with complete focus of attention. And that's, we're dealing with that. We're dealing with that. He's okay. Don't worry about my grandson. He's going to be okay. He gets his 90 minutes a day and that's his fix. But not every grandson is doing okay with that. Some of them play that game all day, and some of them cannot be induced to do anything other than play that game. Now, I've just mentioned grandsons as a particular example here. What I mean to say in the larger picture is, look at our addicted culture. Look at all the addiction that we have to face. Look at all, for example, the political addictions. People hung up on their particular political ideology to the point where they can't accept any other way of thinking, and where they're sending in money all the time and giving up their lives literally for crazy political ideologies. And by the way, I'm a left winger, but it's just as true on the left wing as on the right wing. I don't mean to. I mean, we're talking about two wings of a turkey here, and the turkey is really not doing very well, and the wingtips on both sides are completely radical, highly addicted people. So what I'm saying is, we've got an addicted culture, and we have to explain that away. And that's why these guys, these really good neuroscientists, are in a position of using their really excellent skills as neuroscientists to prove that addiction is actually a brain disease and it is not a cultural disaster. Because if it isn't a brain disease, it's a cultural disaster. Well, come on, it's a cultural disaster.
Sure.
And forget about the silly brain disease. That's what I think about the brain disease model of addiction.
Let me ask you, Dr. Alexander, why would they put forth something like that? Like you say, these are good researchers, they're bright.
Oh yeah.
Is that kind of to, I probably shouldn't use the term explain it away, but it seems like, well, this is wrong, and that's why universally that's why these people do what they do. It's, I don't know, an easy explanation. I don't know. I don't know how they would come up with that if they really took a look at what's going on. Am I making sense?
Sure. Well, you need to work in a government laboratory for a while.
There
I
you
mean,
go.
I
That says it all. Go ahead.
yeah, well, you work in a government laboratory and you go in and you're a young person and you've spent 30 years, let's say, getting a PhD in something, and you're really good at something, and you go into somebody's domain in the laboratory, and your job is to prove some little thing, and you prove the some little thing, and somebody else in the next room proves another some little thing, and then the department head announces that addiction is a disease of the brain. In other words, the guys doing the research and the guys reaching the conclusions are not always the same guys. And you can, like, I know a lot of these young scientists personally, and it's a pleasure. These are these are wonderful people, and they have lots of doubts about the conclusions which are being drawn from their research. And but they're not going to give it up. You know, I mean, they're talking about getting tenure. They're talking about supporting their children, and they're talking about getting a chance to use the most extraordinary machinery of neuroscience research. I mean, it's incredibly high tech, wonderful research machinery. They get to use it as long as they don't make too much of a fuss about what the department says, or what the newspaper says, or what the president says that their research has concluded. Then they're fine. And that's, there's a complex system. I mean, I have come to understand that culture, our culture, is like an organism, and you can't really blame anything on anybody in particular. Really, we're all part of an organized system, and cultures rise and cultures fall. And I believe we are possibly seeing a culture which has risen to great heights beginning to fall. And when cultures fall, they kind of go crazy, and they kind of start saying stuff which doesn't make much sense on a cultural level. And that's how I think these scientists are caught in the trap that you have described, Louis.
That's interesting. The way you explain it, Dr. Alexander, because they get caught in the trap and become part of the, I hate to say machine, but they do what they do because they're caught or feel caught in that trap.
Yeah, and they feel, I know, and they have a lot to feel good about. Like, they're making a lot of money,
Yeah.
and they're getting to do incredible uh, bits of research, and use all this equipment, and develop their intellect, and coming up with complex explanations. It's. I mean, I've been there. I've done that, and that's what it's like.
I'm talking with Dr. Bruce K. Alexander. It's brucekalexander.com, the Bruce K. Alexander's Globalization of Addiction website. I want to jump back, Dr. Alexander, to the video games, and I'm going to say or unless you want me to separate them, the phones, the cell phones.
No, it doesn't matter. It's all together.
That okay. I just wanted to make sure that was okay for me to do. The cell phone addiction, where people, I don't want to say can't put it down, won't put it down.
Yeah.
I see, and it was interesting. And I had this thought, and this was a few years back. I was coming into the studio or driving in, and I looked next to me, and there were four guys in the car at the red light, and they were all looking down at their phones. And again, I'm an old guy, but I would think there's a human being next to you. Talk with. I get looking something up if you're looking up at an address or whatever, or you got an important call, but they're all looking down. And I see it with people driving.
Yep.
You can see it. You can tell when they're looking down. All these accidents. Forgive me for ranting. Distracted driving, and in fairness and complete openness and honesty, I was rolling up on a car. I was looking down at the phone, and the red light. And I knew the light was red, but I all of a sudden didn't realize quite how close. I didn't have an accident. It horrified me. Again, if I, it's kind of like drinking and driving. If I hit a tree and kill myself, then I hit a tree and kill myself. If I hurt somebody else.
Yeah.
So I see this more and more because I see the young people who are raised with it. I wasn't raised with it. But the young kids today have cell phones. I don't know what age, but they and that it doesn't stop. I'm very concerned about that. Of course, in the video games, what are your thoughts on the cell phones addiction, if you will?
Well, I put it all together with the video games and the cell phones and the pornography and all the rest of it. Which is that, I mean, it's pretty bleak to spend your time on a cell phone or a video game. And I don't know anybody would do it if they had anything better to do. And again, I'm coming back to the same argument I started with the heroin addicts.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to do that if they've got something better to do. But if you talk to the guy next to you, I'm thinking of the buses and the SkyTrain in my city, Vancouver.
Wow. SkyTrain. It's got to be great. Go
It's
ahead.
like it's the upside down subway, right?
It's
So
got
it's
to
a
be great.
SkyTrain.
Yeah.
But it's the same. Everybody's looking at this stupid cell phone. But if you talk to the guy next to you, and well, you don't know exactly what you're going to run into there because we're all kind of divided. Because right now in Canada, just like in the United States, you don't really know whether that guy next to you is one of the enemy or not.
Yeah.
And there's a good likelihood that he or she is. And so I mean, I only think that you can understand this in terms of a declining culture where there's really not much promise in talking to the person next to you on the train or the bus or even in the car or even in your living room sometimes. And I want to address it at that level. I want to say, what the hell is wrong with us
No. Yes.
that that we don't find each other more attractive than that stupid little black box? Because of course you're talking to a person on that cell phone,
Yeah.
but that's within a set of
Or
rules.
not, or not talking to them. You're playing games or
Yeah,
looking on social media, whatever. Forgive
it's
me
within
for
a set of
interrupting.
rules. And again, I come back to the games because I see it with my own grandchildren and with other people's grandchildren. Like, these games are great. I have to tell you about my 7-year-old grandson. I introduced him to a game. And the game is called Hole. I don't know if anyone ever knows that game but
I don't.
I know there's thousands of games.
Well, the games I played were pinball years ago, so I'm way out
Yeah.
of touch with the games today.
So this grandson, I love him. You would understand this. I
Of
love
course,
this person.
of course you do.
So I'm introducing him to this game, and he loves this game beyond belief, way more than he loves me.
Wow.
And moreover, within about 3 hours of play, he can't play 3 hours in one day. It has to be spread over 2 days because he's only allowed to have an hour and a half a day. Um, but within two days, he's the best player in the world. Like, he shows me how he's on every time he plays the game,
Wow.
he comes up on top of the list as the best player in the world. Now, this machine is very smart. Do you suppose he's the only one who comes up as the best player in the
Wow.
world? I wonder if the other kids are all coming up as the
Yeah.
best player in the world
And that
after.
draws you in more.
Oh yeah, I mean, he's succeeded. So then I say, well, come on now, let's go out and catch a fish. And he says, but Grandpa, we've been trying to catch a fish for the last 3 weeks. We haven't caught one. And I say, well, yeah, life is like that. You don't get one every time. And but in that game, every time he plays, he's the best player. Not every time,
Interesting.
but many times that he plays, he comes out as the best player in the group that he's playing with, and therefore the best in the world as far as he knows. So these games are diabolical,
Yeah.
but you wouldn't play them if you could catch a fish every time. But you can't catch a fish every time. You got to get used to the kind of life where you don't catch a fish every time, but you catch a fish once in a while. And so that's the problem. We got to somehow create a world which is more attractive than these totally bogus
Yeah.
game worlds. How are we going to do that?
You
I
know,
don't know.
and forgive me, I may have, I've told this story a lot on air too. So for regular listeners, you know what's coming. I remember, and this was years ago, I don't know, actually years ago, maybe 8, 10, 5 years ago. And I was picking up takeout at a Chinese restaurant, and I saw a couple, maybe in their mid-30s ish, sitting across from each other, eating, and with one hand looking at their phone with the other. And it it bothered me. And I could, if you want to do that, why wouldn't you pick up takeout and you can be in your jammies at home if you're going to do right? I mean, why are you going out? And it bothered me so much that when I got home, I told my wife, I said, I I wanted to go over to them and gently push their phones down very gently and say, look at each other. You're sitting across from each other. And my wife's response was, I'm glad you didn't do that because I don't know how we get bail for you to get out of jail. I get it. It would have been assault. I get it. But it wasn't, it's just when I see things like that, it's disturbing to me. The other thing, I just got an email about Candy Crush. They see a lot of adults playing I've seen TV adverts for it, but I'm not familiar with the game. And solitaire, and they see people out and about using those endlessly. And it's interesting because you got the kids, the young kids that are playing video games or whatever, and then you've got older people that are, again, seem to be addicted to those. And you say diabolical, Dr. Alexander. They've got a way of drawing people in, like with your grandson, that you're the best. And then if he's not the best, both ends would want to make him play more. If he's the best, he wants to stay the best. And if he dropped down, he wants to get back up there, correct?
Sure. And that's how it's set up. He's the best, not all the time, but some of the time. And then he goes down a little bit. And I don't want to stop. I don't want to stop. I gotta get back up to the top. So yeah. And it's
disconnecting us.
I don't know what to do about it. I tell you another grandson story. It's not my grandson, but it's my friend's grandson. Their grandson is not limited to an hour a day or an hour and a half a day. He plays most of the day. And we're now talking about a 7-year-old child. He plays most of the day. And when anything comes up, like, do you want to go visit your grandparents? Or no, I want to stay home and play my game. And his parents, they love him. They don't want him lying around, rolling on the floor and screaming.
Sure.
They don't want that. So they say, yeah, okay, you don't have to go visit your grandparents, or you don't have to do this, or you don't have to do that. Now that child is in way more trouble than my grandson, who's plenty addicted. But the point I want to make here is, it's not that this is like addiction. This is addiction. This is exactly addiction. There's no difference between this and being addicted to a drug or whatever. And that's where the brain science leads us astray. The brain science leads us to think, well, if you're addicted to a drug, well, that's a brain problem and it's different. No, it's not different. It's the same problem. And that's what we're not facing as a society. We're an addiction-ridden society, and we're not facing it. And we got to face it. And I don't know how to fix it. I have some ideas, of course, but we got a big problem ahead here, which we either face or we don't face. But if we don't face it, it's going to eat us up. And that's, again, that brings me back to the political stuff.
Yes.
Like you could say, well, these extreme political people, it's not like addiction. It is addiction. And it's going to eat us up. And that's where civil wars come from, is two groups of people who are so addicted to their opposing leaders and their opposing ideologies that they have to kill each other. It's going to eat us up.
Yeah.
And got to face it. And therefore, I happen to think in my 83rd year, that addiction is the field, or one of the fields, one of the studies that we have to get right. We cannot afford not to get it right, because it's going to eat us up. Not to say it's the only problem. I mean, of course, it's linked to other problems which are equally serious. I don't mean to go crazy about it, but it's an essential problem, and we have to get it right, and we're not.
And when you say, Dr. Alexander, about you are concerned about making a conversation with a stranger because things are so divided these days. Also, and you and I were talking before, with the internet, they're now able to find each other
Yeah.
easily, very, very easily. And then the algorithms will keep kicking up things and that's what they're seeing. And they get really drawn in. I'm thinking of in the early 70s, early to mid 70s, when I was living in Atlanta. Outside of Atlanta was the headquarters for the National Socialist White People's Party, the neo-Nazis.
Yeah.
And I knew that because I came across one of their newspapers. But again, back then you'd have to send in, mail something into them. It wasn't easy for them to attract people nationally or internationally.
But
Now,
now it is.
yeah, because if you're looking for it, if you're attracted to being a neo-Nazi, how do you find your people? Back then, how did you find your people? Now it's very easy. And again, people become so divided. And this is the other thing I wanted to tell you, that I've thought about this, about the politics. In my very much younger days, someone could walk into a bar and see two guys screaming and swearing at each other,
Yeah.
where someone would say, we got to get a bouncer. One of these guys is going to slug the other one. A couple minutes later, they're hugging, or they're saying, I'm picking up the tab. Are we going out with the ladies this weekend? You're picking me up. They were friends. They stay, and again, that's obviously not ideal. That's certainly not the ideal way of having a political discussion or any discussion. Yet you didn't unfriend. Again, one of the things that bothered me in 2016 election, if you voted for Hillary, unfriend me. If you voted for Trump, unfriend me. Unfriend you? I mean, because of your vote? Maybe you ought to want to talk about it with them. Maybe maybe they'll bring you their way a little bit. On some, maybe you'll bring them your way, but you've got that active listening. And I get it. It's getting worse and worse and worse. As I was telling you before we started off air, Dr. Bruce K. Alexander, that I've always been very optimistic, and I'm really struggling with holding on to optimism. I'm going to the dark side. I'm starting to get pessimistic, and I don't like that. I don't want to be pessimistic.
Everybody I know is discouraged and depressed about the state of our culture.
Yeah.
And it's a hard time. And I mean, I hate to think of it in terms of the grandchildren, that they feel,
Yeah.
they don't understand it, but they feel it. They know it's there. And I mean, I don't know what to do except what we're doing, which is to keep discussing it, and to keep the lines of communication open as well as we can. So I have made a personal practice of making friends with people whose ideology I hate. And
It's interesting.
and I tell them that we do it largely by way of betting. Like,
Is that right?
sure, I have a guy I know who came into our local discussion group on my island here, and he said, I'm going to bet $1,000 that Trump wins the 2020 election. And
Uh-oh.
and I said, and nobody, of course, is going to take that bet. He said, me? And I say, well, okay, I'm going to make that bet with you. Only my dad told me in 1943, as I recall, that bets are really important ways to figure out who's right on a complex issue. But it's important never to bet more than a nickel.
Right. I love it.
And I said, well, I realize it's not 1943 anymore, and a nickel doesn't buy now what it used to, so I'm willing to bet a dime. And so he and I have this bet that Trump will win or lose. I bet lose the 1920 election, or the 2020 election, the
And
20
you're in for a dime, correct? You're in for a dime.
And and so after the election was over, and in fact, after November 6th, I went and said, well, okay, I'd like to collect my dime. And he said, well, okay, of course I'll pay you your dime because everything looks like you've won, but I know you haven't won. I know Trump is still president of the United States. And I said, fine, you hold on to your dime and I'll hold on to my dime. And we'll resolve it when one or the other of us is convinced that we've lost. And so that's fine. We've been friends ever since.
That's great. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we're friends. And we're still reviewing the evidence. And he sends
Oh,
me
he hasn't conceded yet.
no. He still knows Trump has won the election. And he says, I've got your dime. It's a nice shiny dime. I'll pay you if you win. But I know that Trump is still president of the United States. And I say, well, same for me. I've got a nice shiny dime for you, and I will pay you if I become convinced that Trump has won that election. Well, but this is the basis of I don't want to call it a friendship. Well, I should call it's a real friendship.
It sounds to me like it's civil. Your discussions are, and you've got other common interests, I'm guessing.
So we decided to exchange books. So I said, here's a book for you to read. This is Mary Trump's biography of Donald Trump, which is called Too Much and Not Enough, or something like that. And he read it. And he gave me a book to read, which was Hitler's Mein Kampf. And I read it.
Wow.
And so, and we continued the discussion. The interesting thing about him and the Mary Trump book was he read it, and I thought he's gonna hate this book. He's gonna say, she's lying, and Trump didn't really have that. But you know what what happened when he read it? He said he read it in just a few days, and he said, that family is exactly like my family, because it's a description of a family, Trump's family, with a bullying father and a doormat mother, and all kinds of internal dissension in the family, all kinds of internal hatreds really within the family. He said, that's exactly like my family. And I read the Hitler book, and I was amazed. I mean, I didn't become a Hitler convert.
Certainly.
You wouldn't expect that. But I was amazed at the depth of Hitler's analysis. So that started me on a whole course of reading about World War II. I've read the great historians of World War II now, and of Hitler's and Hitler's followers. It started a whole new line of research for me, and which has turned out to be fascinating. I mean, World War II is all about addiction. It's about people who are so addicted to Hitler and to Hitler's ideology that nothing can turn them away from it. They're perfectly willing to die for it, and they do die for it by the millions. So all I'm saying is, we have to find ways to bridge that gap between those of us who can't understand how each other thinks. We have to find ways to cross those lines, and there are ways. I would tell you more stories.
Yeah, go ahead. I think that's brilliant, exchanging the books.
Yeah, I have more friends who I have bets with of that sort, and it takes each one takes a lot of time to develop, but we see where they're going to go.
Dr. Alexander, when again, I think that's brilliant, but you've got to find people open enough. That's where, and obviously you have, and like you say, making friends with somebody, being a friend of somebody who is different politically, ideological, whatever, is a great way to begin those kind of important discussions. How does it, we should come up with a website or something for that, or where people can meet and discuss. But I think it's, it's a slow, obviously slow process, but it's a wonderful, wonderful concept.
It's an educational process. I mean, it's really educational because you get over, the condemning. You get over condemning people and you say, okay, this guy is making sense in a way that I can understand how he's making sense. I don't agree with it at all, but I can understand it.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, I'm not saying that this is the solution to our problems. I'm just saying that it's educational, and that we need to learn across these divides, and we can.
You got to be willing to reach out. That's, you got to be receptive to it, which I think.
I love your idea, Louis. I love your idea that we could make it into a kind of a website.
I think, I mean, that again, we're talking about earlier as about extremist groups, how it's easy to connect people now with that are like-minded. And I would like to believe, obviously I haven't surveyed, don't know this factually, that I don't want to say most people, many people are maybe a little stuck in the middle. They like some of the things that Trump did, or they like some of the things with President Biden, whatever, but are willing to have a discussion on it. Yeah. I would like to think, I don't want to think it's all one way or the other, either or the unfriending thing. And that would be, I think that'd be a great way of connecting people. I do want to talk with you, Dr. Alexander, about harm reduction, because you in British Columbia has great harm reduction programs from.
Yep, we do.
Talk a little bit about that.
We have great harm reduction programs, exactly as you say. It would, excuse me. The reason we have them is because there's just a whole legion of people here in our city, Vancouver, and our province, British Columbia, who have worked and worked and worked over the decades, fighting all the barriers, getting past all the barriers, so that we have, not only do we have safe injection sites, lots of them now, we also have programs where people can get on drugs like heroin, and stay on them for long periods of time, and get what they need in terms of drugs. We have a whole different attitude. Like, we don't arrest people for possession anymore, and of course we've legalized marijuana, so we've solved that problem. But so we're very proud of ourselves, and we like to brag about how smart we are, and how we're like the smart Europeans, not like the dumb Americans. That's how we praise ourselves. But the fact is that our addiction problem, our drug addiction problem, is just as bad as it ever was. It's not that, I mean, we're way better off because our prisons aren't full of people who are just in there for basically, giving their lives away for crime of drug possession. We don't do that anymore. So in that sense, we're way better off. And we don't have the police brutality issues that we used to have. I mean, obviously, people get mad and cops get mad too. And sometimes we have a sensational case of police brutality, but we don't have systemic police brutality like we used to have. But no, we don't have that anymore. So we're ahead. And we don't have an AIDS problem, because guys who are at risk of getting AIDS, they can go to the safe injection site, and the safe injection site is wide open, it's free, and people are welcome there, and they take care of people. So we don't have a big AIDS problem, but we still have the problem of overdose deaths. Sure. And we have the problem of drug addiction that we've always had. So I think about harm reduction, that it can do a lot for us, but it can't solve our addiction problem. And we still got the kids. We got the children playing those video games instead of going to school, and instead of having a life. That one makes me cry. God, these children, they are innocent. If anyone is innocent,
and
it's
kids.
these children. So we still got that problem. But harm reduction can do a lot for you.
Explain this to me, and forgive my ignorance. God, when I read that, it reminded me, and this was probably very early in my radio days, 15, 18, maybe 20 years ago. I had someone on, I think from Sweden, about harm reduction. And it was interesting in what they were presenting. You're saying there's, in addition to safe injection sites, the access to the drug?
We have various programs where people who are hardcore users and are never going to change can get heroin or something which is just as good as heroin. They just go in, get their injection, and that's it. It's legal. It's free.
That's fascinating, because then you don't have the dealers. I mean, I'm sure there's still some dealers out there, whatever. You don't have to be concerned as that it's cut with fentanyl. Um,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It
I
saves
mean,
lives.
and
Saves lives.
yeah, I would.
We don't have
That's,
enough of that. I mean, these are pilot programs, let's say, but
that's
they're working. And the evidence is absolutely clear that you get guys who are not going to give up injecting drugs, so you give them the drugs, and they don't die.
and they
Well,
don't have to. It's free, so they're not
yeah,
trying to figure out illicit ways to make money. You don't have, as like I said, the dealers
yeah,
uh, out and out, the violence and everything connected with that.
yeah,
Certainly not as much as we do in the States.
yeah. And I don't mean to say that we have achieved perfection in this. We still have a long way to go, but we do have lots of good programs, and they are working, and we can demonstrate that they're working, and we're moving in that direction. Like we're moving towards, how the state of Oregon has decriminalized possession of pretty well everything in small quantities. Well, we'll be doing that soon. Um, and but so it's a wonderful thing in terms of getting people out of the criminal mode and getting people out of jail and keeping people alive. And yet the problem is not going away.
Not going, certainly not going away. When you think about that with the program, again, I'm fascinated by that they can get, I want to say pure heroin, but they can get heroin that they know isn't cut with
Yeah.
something that they're not
Yeah.
going to, I mean, the
It's a pure
fentanyl issue,
drug.
you
It's a
know,
pure, it's not necessarily heroin. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. These are a series of pilot programs that have taken place and are well documented, and there's some going on now, but it's not universal. It's not like any addicted person can just go up and say, "Here I am. Give me the needle and
so,
give me the
yeah,
dope." It's not like that, but it's progress. It's real progress. Enough so that we can, say, well, we're like the Swedish guys, and we're not
yeah.
like the dumb Americans.
I'm Americans. The fentanyl issue in the States, I'm not, I guess that's a little digression from where we're at. It's just so awful. I had a former coworker that was telling me about his cousin who went to a concert for his 30th birthday with friends. And initially he said, died from a heroin overdose. And I didn't know that he used heroin. We were talking about it, and it came to pass that, again, I'm not saying this was a good idea. Obviously, it wasn't a good idea for them. They got some what they thought was cocaine, and it was
Yeah.
had fentanyl in it, and he just dropped dead. That again, I don't want to go too much off on the fentanyl issue, but I've got to believe in British Columbia, it's not as big of an issue as it is here in the States.
Well, I can't compare, but I can say it is a big issue here. We do have fentanyl, and we do have guys dropping dead, and we haven't got rid of it. We're not making it worse. That's what harm reduction says, really, is we don't make it worse by cracking people over the head and putting them in jail. That's not helping anybody. But we haven't got rid of it. And so harm reduction, in my opinion, is never going to solve the problem. I think the problem is a cultural problem, and we're going to solve it when we have a culture that works way better. And that's an enormous challenge because we live in an era of unprecedented cultural size and technology and globalization. I mean, all that, we got to cope with that and still make it possible for our grandchildren to have something to do other than play those
Video games.
goddamn games.
Yeah.
But
A couple of quick comments, Dr. Bruce Alexander, and I understand this. They don't, and they're not spending money that they might need to feed their children if they're able to access that. I'm talking about the hardcore addict is, and I think that's a good point because it's the children that also suffer. Makes me think of a John Prine song called "Sam Stone," and he comes back from war, but he said, there's a line in the song, "There's a hole in Daddy's arm where all the money goes."
yeah,
Yeah, it's tragic. But another quick comment: what's happened to parents that kids don't even want to do normal things with their moms and dads, and then you're older, and then they do because they're grown up. It's a parent.
yeah.
If parents need to limit that time. I mean, they're the parent. They need to take control, guide their children.
But I mean, these poor parents, I agree with what you just said, but these poor parents, I mean, they're struggling to make a living. They're struggling to establish themselves. This is where grandparents come in. They need grandparents to help fill that gap too. And we're not doing it very well. And another thing that these kids need, I'm talking about the very young ones, you know what they need? They need brothers and sisters. And a lot of them are just only children because that's what people do these days. They just have a child and then they say, okay, now we got a family, well, let's go. But it's hard to be an only child. You need to have brothers and sisters. And that's part of the issue too.
And in fairness, there are some that aren't able to have
Of
another
course.
child. There could be it could be economic, it could be biologic, whatever.
Sure.
They,
Of course you could. I'm not blaming anybody. I'm
no,
just
I understand you're not. But that's an interesting point. If you can stay a couple more minutes, and again, you've got great articles. You talk a little bit about your website, brucekalexander.com.
please come and read my website.
There's lots on that website.
Yeah. What that website is a bunch of speeches that I have given since my final drug book came out in 2008. I got a flurry of invitations all over the world to go give speeches. So that was a very good time for me. And it lasted right up until COVID. Like after COVID, I won't fly. But so I've given lots of speeches all over the world on this stuff. Each of course is on a slightly different topic in a slightly different country or in a very different country. And uh, I find it fascinating for people to address the problem from different points of view and for people to respond back to me. So please go read my website.
Yeah, there's a lot on there. The articles are great.
And send me some comments and tell me to go to hell if you think I'm wrong, because I need to hear that.
Okay, well but do it in a polite way. Don't say go to hell.
Yeah.
To my friend, Dr. Bruce K. Alexander. Briefly, Rat Park versus the New York Times. That article is up on website.
Well, the New York Times, is a wonderful newspaper. Right? When I was a child, I was an American child, right? And I lived in New York City, and I delivered the New York Times. So I go way.
I didn't. Yeah, that's yeah.
I go back with the New York Times. I read it every day, but the New York Times is not where you want to go to read a definitive opinion, because the New York Times will always pander, if I can use that word. They will always suck up to the dominant American position. That's what they do. And they do it in a, it's brilliant way. It's a wonderful newspaper, but it is there's a very deep conventionalism in it, which prevents them from taking a really strong position on something like the addiction issue. They will always kowtow to the dominant American official view, and so they have treated poor Rat Park very badly. They haven't really acknowledged the significance of the Rat Park experiment, whereas lots of other people have. I mean, I'm very proud of my little Rat Park experiment, which incidentally is not
Should
just
be.
mine. There are lots of us who worked on it. I just happened to be the one whose name got on it.
You're very modest.
No, it's the truth. But the point is that that if you want to get a really decisive, incisive analysis of what's going on with American culture, you can't read the New York Times. It's not going to give it to you. It's going to give you a variety of points of view, and some of them will be pretty important. And it's going to be in there, but they're going to cover it over with a basically I don't want to say conservative, but a basically traditional
Yeah.
American understanding of things, in which ultimately the American grand narrative prevails, which is the narrative that the United States really is the world leader in democracy, and really American institutions have to be established everywhere, and that's not an adequate view of the world right now. The world is more complex than that.
Yeah, I used to love the Times also. I used to love reading the New York Times, and I've gotten away from that for a number of reasons. I'll still look up articles. They're still good articles, but I agree with you. And the way they're dealing with Rat Park just has always freaked me out. We've talked about that. I as you say, you don't know what to do about the video game addiction, the cell phone addiction, certainly the political things, but it's interesting to me that you still ponder these and you still.
Well, I've quit. I wrote my final article for a professional journal called Addiction Research and Theory, and now I'm retired. And so I could still talk, but I quit writing because I'm 82 years old and I have a sore neck, and literally, and so I'm hunching over my computer 8 hours a day. Well, no more. I'm a full-time grandpa.
That's beautiful.
And so that's fine. I can still talk. Like, and
Sure.
I'm honored, Louis, that you invited me back again. Because
again, Dr. Alexander, I'm honored that you agreed to come back.
Thank you, but you can see I love to talk, and I will continue talking, but I'm not writing anymore, and that's a tremendous relief. I mean, I wake up in the morning, I think, what am I going to write today? And the answer is nothing. I'm going to think about it.
That's great. That's great.
I'm going to think about where the fish are. So next time
you take your grandson,
catch one.
That's hilarious. Again, I'm honored to know you and to be able to communicate with you regularly, and certainly honored to have you do the gig with me, because again, the impact that you've made, what you've expressed and continue to at least talk about, no more writing about it. You're officially retired, but that you'll still talk about and ponder some of these issues is incredible.
Louis, you're very kind. Let me quickly ask you a question.
Oh no. I don't like
to
be on the receiving end of the questions. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I came across a website, which was one of these silly websites, but it said, what are the 21 worst cities in the United States in terms of, and there's Cleveland on the list, along with Camden, New Jersey, and some places which are obviously pretty bad off. Yeah. Is Cleveland that bad off?
Cleveland's got its challenges. I'm sitting in Youngstown. Youngstown has its challenges. I've seen those. I've seen Youngstown, Ohio, on some of the lists too. It's not the worst place to live. I can't recall exactly what they are, and there's problems. Again, I don't want to rant on it. Our education system. Let me see. I think I just read something else. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to put my hand to it, but they're about kids reading. I've had local people come in and talk about. I've had teachers tell me that they've got one teacher that I know teaches third and fourth grade, and she said, I've got kids reading at the kindergarten level. And the school system, I'm not going to mention the school system publicly ever. It's nearby, and they should use they push the teachers to push the kids forward. They frown on holding them back. And my concern, maybe I'm ranting with this.
What's going wrong? What's going wrong?
A number of cultural, some of our cultural things. I think some of them, because of all the distractions, maybe they're not studying. I certainly hold parents. We need to hold parents accountable. But when I read about that and how many people, I've always said, so we'll graduate someone from high school that can't read the diploma that they're getting, and the inability to read. I know I'm off topic. Is horrible in this area. I don't know it elsewhere, but Northeast Ohio, Western Pennsylvania, it's how do we let kids go through a school system and inability to read or inability to read well? I don't get it.
You don't know the answer. I want to read the book on that topic. I want to know the answer, but
I
you're
don't
saying
think
it's not known.
I don't think that. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, again, I don't want. I've talked a lot about this. I won't take your time to go over and over, but these areas are struggling, and I'd like to see that. I'm gonna have to look that up because for a lot of reasons, and crime, etc. The fact that you can every morning when I put the news on, I read about it or hear about a shooting from last night, and younger kids just pulling out guns to. I don't know. It's again hard for me to remain optimistic, but I'm so grateful to you, Dr. Bruce K. Alexander. BruceKAlexander.com is your fantastic website, and that you're still very thoughtful about all of these things.
Well, thank you, Dr. Louis B. Free, and I hope to talk to you again.
If I'm in. Thank you so much.
Okay,
Thanks, Doc. Thanks. I love this guy. He has made such an incredible impact that if you